Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's 4:05, and I think it's time to officially call this meeting to order. So do I have a second to open the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is open. Anyway, so we are here for continuation of the decisions and the deliberations, decisions upon the decision for, and list of waivers for the 40B comprehensive permit by Ricketts Ponds Estates. And anyway, tonight, this afternoon, the rules will be as the same, that the only people who have a right to speak at this hearing as of right are the people who sit to my left and right. Everyone else only can address the meeting by leave of the chair, which is me. All right, so anyway, so when we left off, we had reviewed the preliminary decision, but there has been some changes made. But first, let us return to where we left off, which was the waivers list. We were at section 15.203 when we last left off, and there was a change made. So there's so we can address that section now. And then once we'll go through all the waivers, we'll vote on them to approve section by section, and then after that, we'll go back to the decision and review the changes that were made. And then after that, hopefully we'll be able to make a final vote on the decision. So anyway, all right, so now we're at section 15.203, you can see on your screen. I believe everyone here has had a copy of the updated draft that our town council pointed out to us. And the new language there's new language in, okay, all right, you're going to say a different version, but anyway, so the new language is in green. That was added since the last meeting. And that'll be in all the documents, that we're reviewing tonight, that there's green highlighted text, and that means that it was added after the last draft. So anyway, all right, so 15.203 deals with system sewage flow design criteria, and it's asking for a waiver. We've suggested the waiver can be granted, subject to the following condition. And it talks about innovative, advanced technology, alternative innovative technologies approved by Mass DEP, that the peer reviewer will be involved, that they identify their, all right, so they have to use the same ones. They have to put, they have to identify them. They have to submit to the Board of Health, and it goes on in there. And so they have to submit to the Board of Health and the peer review engineers, JDE and GEI, review with and the calculations and such. And again, and it goes on to it goes on to talk about the model for the drinking water receptors and the area of impact that needs to be addressed, and essentially, I think it summarizes pretty much our discussion from May when we had Mr. Horsley's report, and also the applicant, Mr. Dillon's response to that. So this is what it is. So does anyone have any questions about 15.203?
Attorney does.
I don't think we talked about looking at the areas identified in Scott Horsley's May 18, 2026 report. Receptors shall include proposed wells in the project, existing wells on adjacent properties, and any affected zone to public water supply within the area of impact as identified in Scott Horsley's May 18th report.
We didn't discuss that at the last meeting. We discussed complying with GEI's recommendations, which is none of this. This is the Board of Health's consultant. So, I mean, can I ask who added this language?
Well, as the typist,
The
I
typist,
added it.
okay,
As the
okay.
typist, I added this
I
language.
understand.
This is language that's coming in really through you, Mr. Chair. You had some further concerns expressed after the last meeting. So I did my best to wordsmith some of that.
Yes. Yes, and I think you did a good job of expressing those concerns that have been expressed in the past 2 months to me, and and deals with the issues that have been raised at these hearings. So anyway, so that is the condition. And anyway, does that do my?
I'm just confused what the problem is.
Because
What you don't.
who's going to evaluate this? I mean, you're evaluating sensitive reset. I mean, this is just too much subjectivity to this. And also, it would involve another hydrogeo evaluation, which, I mean, they've already been done. So I don't know, so what are we reviewing here?
Why would you need another hydrogeo evaluation? How is that?
That's what the condition says. I mean, how else, you have a proposed technology, which is, gonna yield 10 milligrams per liter, less than 10 milligrams per liter, which was discussed with all the hydrogeo experts. And it was, GEI agreed that there wouldn't be any impact to off-site wells. I mean, where are these off-site wells? No offset wells. Through 44, you have the Carver Industrial Park where the wells are 500. We've been through this. We've had a substantive review between GEI and Geoscience, Peter Dillon, and I mean, what's the point? What's the point of this condition? What are you going to? I understand we agreed to have JDE, GEI review the DEP-approved technologies for general use for new construction. Okay? They're going to review, they're going to say, great, yes, it's approved for 660, 550 removal or loading, nitrogen loading. And what else is going to be done?
So the documentation will be submitted to the Board of Health, right?
For the approved technologies.
And the ZBA's peer review engineers, who shall review the technologies. I think, my understanding was that if you were going to use the same ones throughout, and if it was changed.
It'd be two different ones, one for 550 technology, one for 660.
Okay. All right, so I don't.
We don't have any right to get into other people's properties either. We do testing. I mean, it's beyond our scope of our ability to even comply with this.
Is the gist of this, is the intent of this is to get GEI to kind of review the requests for like the well test and everything that they're gonna do as part of the approval, and then they'll review it? Or is that somewhere else?
Be with the Board of Health? Well, the well test is in the condition, is in the waiver request, and the condition. Doing the well test, we agreed to that before any construction commences. We're gonna drill one well, or they call it the first well, and do all of the testing recommended by GEI. So this has nothing to do with that. This is something, this is almost like opening the project up to another hydrogeo.
Beyond that, we don't have the ability to test other wells on other people's properties we don't even know who has a well.
It says applicants shall demonstrate that modeled nitrogen levels will not exceed applicable. How do we do that? The only way to do that is to do testing on private property. And when? Is this prior to construction? Is this ongoing? What is it?
I thought it was for the wells on the property.
Yes, I mean.
Not the neighbors' wells. I'm not.
We could do it at the property lines, or put in test wells at the property lines.
Well, we're gonna have our own wells.
Yeah.
So,
The next line
Put in
says,
some test wells.
as used in this condition, receptors shall include proposed wells on the project. It does go on to say existing wells on adjacent properties.
And any affected other areas within an area of impact as identified in Scott Horsley's
yeah,
report.
which is everywhere.
Well, not having the report instantly at hand, although I could probably pull it up somewhere.
Yes. I think I have it.
We can't comply with this condition.
So what is the drinking water receptors for?
I don't have it.
I mean, it's gonna meet the Mass DEP
DEP
requirements.
Yeah.
That
it's
was
ma-
on that.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
and that was still there somewhere else?
Well, I mean, this would clearly say
That is
that
reported,
they
yeah.
have to
Yes,
establish that they've met Mass DEP drinking water standards. And certainly for the wells on the project, that's got to be the case.
So that has to be anyway, that's already included, not in here?
That's what they've got to be able to demonstrate now. Going to other properties or existing wells, or even whatever else is within the Zone 2 public water supply. Where is that?
He takes a position, the entire town is a nitrogen-sensitive area, by the way, because of the high groundwater, which is something I don't think anybody disputes, the whole town is high groundwater.
I mean, obviously, you know, if you take it to its logical extreme, then it would be impossible to comply with the condition as written. But obviously, you know, it has to, you know, as to the actual lots themselves, that, you know, it obviously has to comply with that. As, you know, as to other properties in town, I would, you know, I would think that unless we would have to show a specific concern more than a general, everyone's on a high water table, I don't think, I doubt the condition would be you know, I think I agree with that, the condition is not enforceable. So I think we would have to narrow the language in this section so that it does, you know, recognize that you know, that this certainly applies to the site itself.
Right.
And as to adjacent properties, you know, that's obviously, you know, the whole town, you know, that's out of the pale.
I have his letter if it's helpful.
Also, is this a pre-construction requirement? What is this requirement? Prior to building permit, because, you know, there's no impact. You know, there's no measurable impact until somebody moves into the house. Should be an impact anyway, but I'm just saying, what are you gonna test?
Yes. No, I understand what you're saying. There's no nitrogen being generated until someone moves in the house and starts using their systems. So, I mean, the sentence, you know, if we cut out the sentence that says, as used in this condition, receptors shall include proposed wells of the project, or at least cut it out, existing wells on adjacent properties, any affected Zone 2 public water supply area with the area of impact, if we cut that out, and if everything from the words existing wells on adjacent properties onward, I think that would you know, deal with the problem that you found in the condition.
Test on wells on an ongoing basis.
As long as.
This is a
Water
pre-construction
sheds a chance of
condition,
this.
isn't it?
I think they already do above, because it says, you know, they identified the permit prior to the issuance of the first septic system permit. All right, so how about if we do this, right? The previous sentence is applicant shall demonstrate that model nitrate levels in drinking water receptors should not exceed the applicable Mass DEP drinking water standards before Board of Health shall issue a permit.
That would give the Board of Health a chance, I'd put that with that.
But can
What are you
we
testing?
think about that, though? Because
Well,
it's one thing, obviously, for the IA technologies to be identified and for some testing to be done to make sure that they actually meet the nitrogen loads that they assumed that they would meet for safe drinking water purposes. But to your earlier point, Mr. Chair, we're not going to have any nitrogen loads yet,
Yes.
and we're not going to have any,
So all we have,
wells
all we would
until
have would be
wells are actually
models and hypotheses and theories of what the nitrate load would actually be.
right,
So now, and once the thing is built, what else can we really do if there's an excess nitrate load as a result, despite what the models say, what could we do then? It doesn't sound like we do terribly much, except if we've already said we've approved these technologies, and now they're not up to snuff. Is there much that we can really do at that point?
Can I add
I
something?
think there'd be no occupancy permits that issue, but,
Well, there's a testing requirement that is ongoing for the septic system itself. So you have to demonstrate that it's functioning as, intended and as permitted on an ongoing basis through an O&M plan. And there's reporting requirements to that effect to the Board of Health. So if the effluent coming out of the system meets the standard, why test a well? What's the point? And this is you're saying this is I'm still confused. Are you saying this is a permit condition?
There won't be any septic waste for you to test. It'll never trigger any adverse impact because there's no effluent going to the ground, so it has to be a post-permit evaluation.
And let's say, that seems to make sense, all right, so, all right, let's say that, all right, so you put your septic system in, you've got nitrate, you've got your system, filtering out the nitrate, whatever it's doing, right, and then we find out that the system just doesn't work, and the excess, there's too much nitrate in the soil that's resulting after the effluent goes through the septic system. At that point, we'd have to say the system has failed, and therefore occupancy permit revoked, get out? Is that how it works?
I think the situation is we believe that the DEP's approved these technologies because they've been demonstrated to work and reduce nitrogen levels. And if a particular technology is failing, we'd probably know that now because it's already been evaluated. But we would agree to use an alternate system if it's shown that the DEN system is not functioning as intended.
I do appreciate what you said a little earlier, that the condition starts with, provided the applicant employs the same technologies on all septic systems throughout the project. I think that some language could be had to ensure that there's flexibility by saying any appropriate system used throughout the project instead, so it can give you the alternative. If one is not going to work, you can use another so long as you can demonstrate its appropriateness. And I think that might help satisfy this condition. But I think that essentially, what you say about the post-conditioning testing probably would have to work in order to to make this actually function in terms of of how these things actually work. So
We think it's completely appropriate to have an ongoing testing thing for the site to make sure that they're doing what was intended.
It's required by regulation.
Right.
all right.
So what are we waiving exactly? Because I just want to be clear.
It's a Board of Health regulation in this particular one that's being asked to be waived.
Yeah.
And and this would be like a safeguard for meeting that, for us to waive this Board of Health. Like, we're saying, hey, it's all
They
right.
just have a flat-out prohibition.
Well, right.
Oh,
So-
I see, 'cause they have a
so Title-
prohibition now.
Title V is the state standard
Okay.
for septic systems.
The floor.
Right. Communities like Plympton can be more restrictive, as they have been. So there's kind of two primary requirements here that are at issue. One is the setback distances between a septic system and a private well. The state's requirement is less restrictive than the town's. And then, of course, the town has that outright prohibition against these innovative alternative technologies being used. So it's sort of the interplay of those two that you're being asked to waive. And this is where we left off on June 25th with a lot of discussion about how this was going to work. I think it could be addressed by getting rid of that subject sentence that you've identified, Mr. Chair.
At least after the second comma, I think, because obviously the proposed wells in the project, I think can stay with the rest of it. And the rest of it sounds like it can be cut out just because it's just unfeasible to enforce or impossible.
Right, but I think that but in terms of timing, we've got a couple of different things that are at work here. Because I think JDE had asked at our last meeting, identify the technologies, and at least prior to the issuance of the first septic permit, that they were going to evaluate that, yes, the system is supposed to reduce nitrogen and nitrate levels to an acceptable level as far as the state is concerned. And then if they were going to employ a different technology, say on other systems for whatever reason, JDE would get a chance to also look at those different technologies. That's all prior to the issuance of a septic permit.
Yes.
Then there is the O&M plan for these technologies, and there is inspections and testing, et cetera, that goes with that. We could instead put some language relative to to the O&M plans and those conditions that if, testing reveals that the nitrogen levels are not within the Mass DEP acceptable level for a public drinking supply, then applicants got to take some sort of action.
All right, I can see.
And, it's up to them to figure out what that action might be. And it's not even probably going to be the applicant at that point. It's probably going to be the homeowners association, because we won't necessarily know that these technologies fail until people are in and living in those houses.
All right, so at some point, if the technology fails and the nitrogen load is excessive, then they've got to solve that problem. And we can put that in the operation and maintenance plan and make that as a covenant that runs with the land like so much other stuff. And this will be revealed through inspection, through their septic system inspections, the other inspections that we've had in the conditions and the waivers. So I think that sounds to be the approach we can take. So, all right, so
I think the main thing is, we're making this decision, and then if something goes wrong, it comes back on us. And that's why we're trying to just be thorough.
and be proactive.
And be proactive, so that if something does go wrong, it's like, hey, we've done everything we can to protect the community.
All right, so, anyway, so, all right, so it looks like we'll modify this paragraph, it'll start with, provide applicant employees appropriate tech, instead it says same, appropriate IA technologies for all septic systems involved in the project. As used the condition, the septic shall propose, you can do the proposed wells in the project, end sentence, and then we'll talk about, something like applicant, shall include in an operations and maintenance program, required mitigation should the system fail to meet the load. Words to that effect. I'm sure we got the general idea by now. All right, so I think that covers this section. So if there's no other observations, let's go on to the next one, which talks about minimum setback distances. All right, so. Okay, this one's seeking waiver for minimum setbacks, to comply with Title V setbacks, the use of alternative technologies to meet, the GI's peer review report. Now, Carolyn, there are a bunch of colored things on this one.
Yeah, those are still stray marks from the last draft, so you can ignore those.
Right, yeah, right. They all just pretty much seem to be demarcations as to various subjects.
Right.
All right. So. Okay. Right. So essentially, what this thing is saying is, is that the setbacks will comply with Title V, with the proviso that they that they follow the nitrate loading that's been talked about with the GI reports and what we've just been talking about for the past 15 minutes. All right, okay, all right, so, all right, depth of groundwater, again, it's Title V is gonna control, preparation of plans and specifications, Title V, again, with some notes about GEI's peer review letter. And again, next section about Title V, and, okay, all right, and septic tanks, all right, again, pretty much Title V controls no garbage grinders. So, again, good luck trying to enforce that, but anyway, that's what it says. So there will be no garbage grinders permitted in this development. And that'll be in their condo docks, and hopefully they obey them. All right, okay, all right. So, okay, all right, waiver for soil absorption systems, with, if supposing they meet the load. All right, Title V, right, okay. All right, so once you get really past, the next one of 15.282, types of alternative systems, all right, that says, all right, that's gonna be IA technologies. Okay, looks like, pretty much what we just talked about is much of it's incorporated in C about the operations and maintenance plan for IA technologies. Ensure proper operations. There's going to be, HOA trustees are going to be the, are going to be in charge of this, and that is the overarching HOA, not the individual associations. Right. Is that clear in this document, that it's going to be the overarching HOA, the whole, the committee of the units as the whole, the trustee of the board as a whole, and not individual units are going to be responsible for enforcing this operations and maintenance plan.
Right, it's not the condo association.
No, not the individual condo associations. It has to be
Because it's two different
the governance of the whole project. Okay?
And my suggestion would be, Mr. Chair, that the language we were just talking about under section 15203, I think it makes more sense to go here.
All right. Yeah, I think so, since that's what it's talking about, so. Yeah, so to the extent that there needs to be, extra language, put it there. I'm not sure how much there needs to be. All right. And the last one deals with shared systems, again, Title V and previous, the way, okay, soil absorption. All right, anyway, so that is, that's the Title V regulations that they've asked for waivers for. Those are Plympton supplemental Title V regulations. So anyway, so having gone through them and made discussions and changes, I would move that we vote to approve the waivers as listed in this document, subject to the amendments and modifications we've discussed this afternoon. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, let's go on to the next section. All right. Town of Plympton Division 2 regulations, Chapter 340, site plan regulations. Essentially, it says waivers to be granted from, we decide, the ZBA acts in view of the planning board, and so it's however we deal with this instead of how they deal with it. That's the waiver. So, all right. So, let's So I would suggest, all right. So unless there's anything that someone's highlighted about this part of this waiver list, I simply would vote to approve the waivers granted. Do I have a second?
Again?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move on to the wetland bylaws. All right. So, okay. So. All right, so these are the Town of Plympton wetland bylaw regulations, and I think it's the last section here. All right, so Section 2, activities subject to regulation of this bylaw. I think we already talked about this prior to the last meeting. All right, so essentially this gives the procedure, you know,
Oh, excuse me.
section 2, under wetlands bylaw. I think you're on,
10.
yeah, that's the one.
Right here.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so as I understand it, this one essentially, it says, you know, that we're acting in place of all local boards. We've had the input of the Conservation Commission at some point, and we've tried to incorporate that to the extent that we can in this decision. And ultimately, you know, that there is, you know, that there is a, you know, they have to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, and if they want to do what's not required, they need to serve a notice of intent. So essentially, it does recognize that, that there's going to be, you know, within the 100-foot buffer zone, then they have to go before the Conservation Commission and, you know, seek, with a notice of intent and seek an order of approval of conditions, you know, as identified in the section. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I can just ask, you see highlighted there, applicant to review the basins, that was some language that was left over from a prior draft.
Yeah, I
so
figured that. All right, so,
if we could just clarify that the basins
Basins are fine.
are fine, and we can
They're
delete that.
outside.
They're outside the no-touch zone.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's two, I think we already looked at the bylaw, and now we'll look at the regulations, so there's similar language in both.
Okay.
all right, so essentially that this section, you know, gives a guideline of how it's to be, of how we proceed if there is going to be something that touches upon Chapter 290. And, you know, essentially it says under certain circumstances, they have to go to the Conservation Commission, and under other circumstances, they have to go to the ZBA. And again, you know, and that's, the section is the same for the remainder of it. You know, the idea being that if they have to go before this, as I understand this, the whole section is that they have to come to us, you know, then they fall under our jurisdiction, and we deal with them how we see fit. If they have to go to the Conservation Commission, then they have to deal with their procedures and such.
Right, and we're only approving at this point what is shown on the plans.
Yes.
You know, once these are individual condominium associations and folks want to possibly put an extension onto a duplex or, you know, put in some sort of other structure, that would not be covered by this particular waiver.
All right, so if they do something in the future that has to go between one of these buffers or no-touch zones, then they're going to have to come on their own steam and say, you know, why they want this and how they're expected to comply and whatever requirements are needed for that, if they are allowed to do that.
And if they met before us, then they have to meet the 3 criterias and,
Oh, no, conservation's different, you know, that's a different animal.
but they say if it's conservation, or sometimes it would be before us.
Oh, yeah,
depending on
if there is a need for a variance for some other
A
reason, then they'd
variance.
have to come before us and meet the conditions as typical. But if they need to do something with a no-touch zone or a buffer zone that comes within
That would just go
conservation.
through conservation. Okay.
All right, so unless there's any other discussion, you know, I would move that we approve the waivers as conditioned in this section.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so that takes care of the waivers document. All right, now, is there anything before we go back to the decision, anything going back here, because we started like on page 16 or so, 14 in my document, I think Dave's is a little different. Is there anything prior to here that we really need to discuss? Because there's been, you know, I think it's, you know, it just looks like clarification. You know, I mean, I don't think we need, for example, on page 6, it says applicants check drainage basins. I think they took care of that.
Right. No, anything prior to that was really just what you had discussed at your last meeting, and it was cleaning up.
All right, I tend to agree. For example, it says, you know, here, 14, 15, waiver granted to allow construction projects showing approved plans. All right, I know we talked about that.
Because this is a separate meeting.
And you said there was one other reference to the basins,
Yeah, I saw it on
Prior to
page, I
that.
saw it on page 6.
your page 6.
Yeah.
That-
The bottom.
Okay, yeah, that's the same thing. We can cut that out, since it's talking about.
Do you
chapter.
have the sections? that was
290-6.
290-6.
Yeah, at the bottom is a little sentence about
if you see on page.
It's not showing up on mine.
And there it is, see? The bottom applicant to check drainage basin.
Somehow mine splits.
Yeah, I know, it's, different programs do it, because
Yeah.
whatever you're using to open the document, whatever I'm using to open the document,
It's
and not
different.
something. What exactly am I using to open the
I
document?
use Word document.
You're on Word too.
I think so. It must be a different version of mine, or just a different way of presentation.
Yours is easier because it completes it by block. I have
Yeah.
a Joe.
Oh.
Split.
Joe will break construction.
All right, however, just to be comprehensive, right, let's, the yellow highlight, it started on page 1, there's, yeah,
Oh.
all the way at the top of the document.
Yeah, this is just prior to doing any activity. Okay.
That's what I said.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
One comment on the earth removal waiver.
Yeah,
I think we were completely fine having a special meeting before any earth removal took place.
Yes.
But can we just do that with the building department and let them determine who they want to have in attendance? We're fine with whoever that they want to have in attendance, but it would be easier for us to coordinate with the building inspector, and the building inspector can invite anybody that he would like.
Who's listed?
building, conservation, fire, health, highway, planning, police, and school.
Because remember, this is going to go out, it's going to take a right-hand turn and go on the highway.
Yes.
Or it's going to go under the bridge and take a left and go on the highway. It's not going to go through any Plympton road, so I don't think the superintendent or the principals are going to be overly concerned with it.
All right, no, I mean, I don't have a problem with adjusting it to say,
He can invite anyone he wants.
all right,
as
so
far as I'm concerned.
the sentence could say something like applicant shall, in consultation with the building department, coordinate and schedule pre-activity meeting with whichever town representatives the building
Department wants.
department.
Identifies or something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
something like that.
identifies
Yeah, I
as
don't have a problem
necessary.
with that.
Does the CBA want me there?
Yep. What's wrong with that?
Yep, yeah, so. Yes,
Why can't other boards be there, Board of Health?
they can,
You
they can.
can.
I think it should be mandatory that all the conservation, all the boards be there. There's been a lot of earth removal there already.
Well, that'll be the building inspector or.
Decision.
Or, we'll decide who gets invited to the meeting.
We don't care who they invite, but making a point of contact, the building department is fine.
I agree that the building commissioner, the inspector
Should decide.
can be the main point of contact for that. I don't have a problem with that.
And then he can let all the other departments, know, as opposed to you contacting each of the departments.
Yeah,
is
that's
what you're
fine
saying.
with me. All right, so we'll change that. All right, so it says, there's highlighted language about waivers granted on the approved plan, grading and drainage plan, sheet 7, 426. All right, again, that was just a specification of it. Okay, all right, so when you go down to page 3, there's some language in red that says you're not, but.
We do know about that.
Agriculture residential district, we should leave this waiver request as some side lots appear to be less than 75 degrees at the street. Do we need that in there, or is that,
Yeah, that was clarification as to why the applicant, we had a lot of conversation, if you remember, where there isn't an agricultural residential district in Plympton. But still, if you look at subparagraph A, in no case shall the mean direction of the side lot line form an angle of less than 75 degrees with the street line. And that's really the basis for the waiver.
all right. Okay. Okay, I don't see anything else here that requires further comment. Again, this is just, this is just clarification. So anyway, so I think we can, put the waiver, set the waivers aside and go back to the main decision and review the changes made there. All right, so now we are at the draft, July 3rd. So. Okay, all right, so as I understand, the stuff in yellow highlight was previous, because I think I did see that.
Some of it, yes.
So anyway, so I think we're focusing on the stuff in green highlight is new.
Right.
So, okay, it looks like we start with 26 through 29. That's on page 15 of my version of the document. Paragraph 26.
These are new things.
Yes. These are this part's is definitely new. But the highlighted there, about 7 to 4 is not.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so principally at my suggestion, due to recent events, that we have added new language about compliance with the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. That's the MEPA decision. There was a decision made on June 22nd. It's a very long decision, but essentially it says that the applicant has to provide an environmental impact report, and that we are including that as a condition on this permit that they do so. All right. And I guess we also, 27, we added shall conform to all the laws and take appropriate control measures to minimize nuisance, which I think, and I think we added a pair more on 27 and 28. No idling more than 5 minutes. Source separation of recyclable materials, and okay, and 31 spills contingency develop spills contingency plan, and tell the workers about it. Okay. Okay. All right. And that they have to in 32. Responsible for all reasonable town inspection fees and peer review fees, demonstrate Title V compliance, review of IA technologies to ensure compliance, Mass DEP, nitrate levels. So anything else here that, okay, all right, I will get to that later. All right, so that's the new language.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
back to the MEPA,
Yep.
I'm sensing that was also suggested to be added by a local board, other than yours.
Yes.
So I'm confused as to why, first of all, MEPA does not make a decision. MEPA itself is not a permitting agency. They don't make decisions relative to what's required and what's not required. They notify applicable local and state agencies that would make those decisions. In this case, the DEP would make a determination of such as whether or not a public water supply is required or necessary under either Carver or Plympton. And we have a detailed email from Jim McLaughlin at DEP. The Board of Health, you may recall, reached out to DEP and got them involved early on in this project because they were concerned that this project would require a public water supply, and Mass DEP says no. They agree with our approach. So this site will never be used for public water supply. Carver's already been permitted and built. They have wells on each lot.
Yes.
So at the time, in 2018, a lot has changed in 8 years. It was contemplated that, given the proposed light industrial use on Lot 6 in Carver, that there was a lot of land that might be available if the Ricketts Pond subdivision in Carver needed a public water supply, but it doesn't. So, again, Mass DEP would be the agency that would make this determination. They've already said Ricketts Pond Estates Comprehensive Permit Project does not constitute a public water supply. The way it's laid out with individual wells and septics meets Title V.
But as I recall, that was before, that there was concern that the scope of the project change, which required you to seek MEPA approval, essentially says that, that the land that when we built our industrial park, this land above that to the north was supposed to be used as as open space or credit land or whatever you want to call it, and now obviously it's no longer going to be there because it's going to be used by 30 housing units. So ultimately, it did seem to me that, that whatever you need to do on other, regarding that, should be reflected in this decision, and that's what we're going to do.
Nothing was required by that MAPER certificate.
Anyway, nothing to worry about then. All right, so anyway, so now the next section, thank you, the next section that we need to, all right, so the next section is, prior to the construction of any wells, the applicant shall test the quality of the water supply and submit the testing results to the Board of Health. I think that,
Page is that, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, that's on page 20.
Number 46.
I didn't get that. But,
All right,
I mean, I cannot do that.
so, okay, all right, so test the water supply, I think that's a very salutary addition. Okay, all right. Now 53 again is the next one, which says applicant to comply with mass stormwater standards, including not limited to student stormwater to retrieve 80% of total suspended solid removal. Again, I don't see any particular issue with that. Okay, all right. Again, 70, looks like 74. Pedestrian signage should be upgraded to include advanced warning signs. I'm not sure what that, how that changes things, but,
That was part of Mass DOT's comments, as
Okay.
part of the whole MIPA review.
all right. Okay, 75, said welcome packet to provide, all right, that. Okay, 77, prior to issuance of building permit, peer reviewer, a landscape plan, a roadway and sidewalk, any areas to become common areas, shall be responsible for replacing trees. All right, so 77 seems to be a reasonable condition to me. Anything else? All right. 82, all right, accessory uses shall apply, all right, no accessory structures in front yards, and number 83, all duplexes shall be constructed with all electric systems. Does that mean no oil or gas?
I don't know if you had a plan that far ahead. That was, again, the all-electric systems was something that the,
Well, we're not contemplating natural gas, right, Peter?
No,
There's no
not
gas there,
available.
but
Not available.
can we briefly talk about 46? We kind of skimmed over this pretty quickly.
Sure. All right, what would you like to say about 46?
Well, the way that reads is it opens the testing up to every well. When the requirement from GEI was that we install the first well and then run all of the tests that,
Okay.
that the private well guidelines and Mass DEP require, as stated in their recommendations in their latest reports. So this suggests that we're testing every single well, which is not what the waiver says.
Isn't that standard though, for whenever you put a well in on a single family?
Yeah, that's,
There's no standard that you have to submit. I mean, what,
Whenever you get a well
I
permit.
mean, whatever the Board of Health would customarily require for a well permit is what the language should be.
Is that what this is getting at, or no?
yeah.
I think there are certain, not the full gambit of tests that our GEI is recommending. No, it's not required for every well.
So
No.
what if, what if we said prior to the construction of a well, as in a singular well, applicant shall test the quality of the water supply?
Yeah, and you could reference use the same language that is.
So I think I understand your concern is, you build a well, it's not like we should have, you have to go around and test water quality for wells that aren't built. But I think, it should be, you build a well, you test the quality, you build a well, you test the quality. Is that what you're getting at?
Like, you don't think you should test the quality of the well each time?
First of all the tests that are required or mentioned in GEI's recommendations section are not typically what would be required for every single well. So we're agreeing, in the condition, it's in the waiver, we're agreeing to the condition that, in the waiver that says that we're gonna, before the very first well that's drilled, before any construction occurs, that well's gonna be drilled, and all of the tests recommended by GEI are gonna be done. But all of those tests are not typically required to get a well permit for every lot.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, so,
Like
and don't
others-
ask me which ones are required, this is not my bailiwick, I don't, so, but ours, in discussing this with our expert, he said, sure, let's just do it for the first well. And if the first well, if there's an issue with the first well, then we have to provide adequate treatment.
I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't want to test all the wells.
I mean, I think what I think he might be trying to distinguish is ordinary testing versus extraordinary
Yes,
testing.
correct.
Yeah. So we can still do the ordinary
Yes.
testing. So, but this is more extraordinary.
It
in terms
might,
of
it
the
could be
wording.
read to require that.
So we could
Bill
work-
Carolyn, it seems more like standard testing that we do for.
No, I
It
think-
doesn't mention GIs.
I mean, if it gives some level of comfort, 46 is supposed to be just the standard, like, Board of Health required well testing.
Then let's,
And the waiver got more specific into GEI's requirements.
Well, that still means every property needs a well per those regulations
Yeah.
then, by the Board of Health for
Yes,
each
yes,
drilling.
yes, each one will
Right.
get a well permit, each one will be subject to the ordinary testing procedures. But for GEIs, extra conditions that are incorporated into the waiver, then, those, only apply prior to the first well.
why don't we add language that says that is customarily required for a well permit from the Board of Health, something similar to that.
I mean, it seems, it's just that the wells will meet a safe drinking
Yeah.
water standard. I mean, I don't understand the excessiveness of this.
No, I mean, I think his concern is that this, is that this language, if read, may require those extra tests to be performed as every well.
On every well,
which
where
it's
you're gonna
not.
do all this bunch of testing on the first well, but you'll still test the future
Whatever the
wells,
standard
but,
testing is for any other well, we'll do for each other well.
Well,
Okay.
look, is that requirement mentioned as a condition anywhere else in this decision? The GEI recommendations is what I'm saying.
No, it's in the waivers.
Again, so that's my concern, that it should also, if there's any ambiguity, it should be clarified in this 46.
All right.
So take the same, language from the waivers.
I mean, but the waiver is pretty specific that it is a monitoring well.
what does that mean?
Like, your initial, sort of like the initial test well, not necessarily every single well.
Right.
You're saying you're comfortable for all of the other wells that follow, performing the standard testing that the local Board of Health would
Whatever's
require for those
required.
wells.
Okay.
It's just that initial,
Which is the full panoply of tests.
So we just want to clarify what testing.
yep.
But we definitely want
So,
testing.
for any
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
I think it was saying we're only going to test one well. I'm like,
No.
No, no, but I see what they're saying. They don't
yeah, you
have to
want to make
do
sure. Yeah.
all of these tests for every single well when they're, 100 feet apart or whatever.
If this is the only condition relative to well testing in the entire decision, then one might connect this with what's required for one well in the waiver list.
No, it's a fair point.
All right, so,
Distinguish the two.
Yeah.
There's two different,
yes, all right, so we can adopt language to
clarifying.
make that distinction.
Right.
All right, so now, so other than that, we skimmed over briefly the other changes in green.
Yeah.
Let's see, is there anything that anyone wants to talk about regarding those? All right, hearing no requests. Now, I have a question about, about in terms of mechanic. All right, so anyway, so we have a decision here, and I think we're pretty much there to vote on to approve or to vote it up or down. And anyway, but still, there's some language that needs to be changed, it's, minor things at this point, When we approve this decision, right, but we can't, we don't have a printer here, it needs a little time to go and reflect what we thought we meant to say. Anyway, when do we actually go and sign it and give it to the town clerk? How do we do that?
So, once you actually vote on the decision, we've only got 14 days to
Okay.
file it with the town clerk's office. So that does give us a 14-day window to clean up some of the language, so to speak. You can either vote to approve this, subject to my making changes consistent with your discussion this evening. Your only other option would be tomorrow is the deadline for the 40-day deliberation period. If you wanted to come back one more time as a board and just,
Sign everything.
But we
well,
could-
not necessarily to sign everything, but if you felt the need to come back and say, look, I think as a group, we need to see some of this language and vote specifically on some of that language, then you'd need one more meeting. And to get one more meeting in, you would need the applicant to agree to extend this 40-day deliberation period for some sort of modest extension to allow that.
Yes, because we need our 48 hours to give notice of another meeting.
Right. Or, as I say, you vote today directing me to make the changes consistent with your discussion, and we all hope that what I come up with for language is consistent with what you thought you were instructing me to do.
All right, but let us say, not to impugn your abilities, let's say, for example, that there isn't something that might be more than just, oh, you forgot an and here, or you forgot a comma here, or we feel like, oh, this doesn't quite reflect what we had in mind, what do we do then?
Well, once you voted, you're kind of locked in. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, I think this is a correction,
Okay.
and we can correct something. But, if we're seeing this in a very substantively different way,
Yeah.
that's not exactly a correction.
All right, I see. All right, so at that point, we could only pretty much make changes to form, not to substance.
Right, like if I, for some reason, put something in at 500 gallons and it's only supposed to be 50 gallons, for
Okay,
example,
yeah.
yes, we can just say that, no, that is clearly an error to be corrected.
Okay, all right, so now is everyone clear about what our choices are? We vote, I think, we can vote this decision and trust Carolyn with making whatever changes needed to reflect our intent, and provided there are no issues, we sign it and submit it and have done with it. The other option would be to, what would the other option be? I forgot.
The only other option would be if the applicant were willing to grant you sort of a modest extension of the 40-day deliberation period, so that you'd have one more opportunity to review the language.
Matter of procedure, do we get to vote again on accepting them as a doer of the project or not? When does that happen? Or when we vote for this?
We're
we
kind of
vote
at
for the
that
project?
point.
We're at that point now. The
We're
vote's
upon
supposed
that
to be
point
The
where,
last meeting, the last yea or nay, okay.
Unless we accepted unless we asked for option B. That would require their assent.
But I don't think the wording is really all that, I mean, I think we were pretty clear about what we
I
want to
think-
word.
I
Few
think
items
so.
we're talking about today.
You what?
There's only a few items we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah, there's only a few things, and I think we were,
All right, so I'm prepared to propose option A, namely that we enter a vote here tonight on the substance of the decision and the waivers, and for our town council to incorporate what we discussed here this afternoon into a final document that we can sign in the next 14 days. That's my proposal.
I think I'm good with that.
All right,
I
so,
think there were that
all
many
right, so,
corrections.
let us,
So that terms acceptance or denial of a special permit.
that's,
we get the whole-
that's next part. The first part is just say, do we want to proceed with this
All right,
procedure?
then, so there is another part, another
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
All right, so-
All right. I just
All right,
wanted
so,
to be
all right, so
clear.
anyway, so, let's see, motion to adopt my proposed course of action. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now we've done that. So now the next subject comes to, we have the whole thing in front of us, the whole decision and the reflection upon our action on this application for a special permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B. Now we've discussed it, we've gone through every section and all the waivers, and we've voted on those waivers, but still we need to vote on the decision. Do we approve it or do we deny it? Now, and it's, as I understand, it's a majority decision, so two of us need to, if two of us vote in favor, it's adopted. But if three of us vote in favor, it's also adopted, and if two of us vote, or three of us vote against, then obviously it's not, then it's denied.
Well, I thought it had to be unanimous. all three
Not for
of
the,
us,
not for
no?
40Bs.
Not for a comprehensive permit, nope.
Right, so go on.
So, anyway, so indeed, it could even be that two vote to adopt and one could even abstain if he or she so chose. Obviously leave that to their conscience. Now, is there anything that anyone would like to talk about before we make a final decision?
What's the latest with the legal issues?
That's a good question,
I
but
know, but that's
that's out
not,
of our purview, I think, right
I
now.
know.
Right? That's unfortunate.
Anyway,
because that's not part of it, I know.
Yeah, there's everything from our last meeting, but
does anyone feel they need to take a break before they come to such a momentous decision?
No.
All right.
One thing, if I may add, Mr. Chair, since there was just a reference to the Superior Court litigation, you'll recall that a prior draft had a landscaping provision in it. And there was some discussion about perimeter landscaping and whether or not we were going to require something or not require something. I kept the language in at condition 77. I know that some of this obviously is going to come to the individual condominium associations, and everyone's going to decide what kind of landscaping they want for their own individual lots. But you could still require some landscaping, say at the entrance or, along the exterior perimeter of the project. I note the Superior Court, the preliminary injunction at least talks about a restoration plan. Well, we're never going to get a restoration plan because what's going to be built is going to be a 40B.
I would think that it would be a good idea, certainly obviously, yes, as you say, it cannot be restored because this is effectively going to override that restoration plan by the Superior Court, which is a rare occurrence of a local board or committee being able to override a judicial agent, a judicial body. But anyway, that's what we are. In terms of the what's there on the ground, now obviously there's a lot of sand and upturned earth, and not a lot of trees on the lot as currently exist. As we look back, I think it was March or April with Mr. Opachinski, and so anyway, so I mean, ideally, I don't, obviously, I know that, as it's going to be a developed site. So at first, it's going to look, kind of like what it is now. But eventually, it should, mature with vegetation to be something a little more domesticated than essentially the adjunct to an industrial park as it currently is. So anyway, I'm not sure what authority we have to tell them, oh, they got to plant this, you got to plant this tree, this shrub, grow grass here, and do all that. I mean, ultimately, I think it would be in their best interest to do in order to attract potential buyers. But in terms of, the only thing I could suggest would be to suggest that that anything that they do, to the extent that they shall not be inconsistent with the restoration plan, to the extent that it may still be applicable to the site. I mean, this will words that effect. You know, so essentially, yes, we would like the lot restored, but that's not going to happen. But I feel that we should try to come within the spirit of the plan, if at all possible, to the extent of outlying areas, you know, surrounding the actual units themselves.
Well, I don't think we can achieve a restoration plan where a redevelopment project is proposed. It's not unusual for there to be some sort of a landscaping plan that's required, whether it's part of a 40B or even just part of a residential subdivision.
Yes.
And it typically has to do with the entranceways, sometimes street trees, common areas, things of that nature. And often that condition then transfers to the overarching homeowners association, because we want to make sure that the landscaping is maintained, not that it's just pretty for 2 years and then is allowed to just, die out. But again, it is whatever the will of the board.
That would be tough to define, though, wouldn't it?
I mean,
It's grass, it's trees, it could be stone walls, it could be a combination of anything or nothing. Would be
I
the
mean, it does sound
HOA, I
rather
think.
subjective, if that's what you're getting at,
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah.
I mean, condition 77 states that shall submit a landscape plan. Now, it doesn't say what that landscape plan has to contain. It doesn't say like you need a tree every 15 yards. But I agree, obviously, most people like reasonable number of trees around, I mean, we live where we live, there's no lack of trees in most places. But still, again, that, I feel that is subjective in terms of what we, and, difficult to impose on what, is what's going to be required. I really feel that, I think that condition 77 is I'm not sure how much better we can do than what the language in 77 says.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I think it's more a matter of, do you want to keep it in? Do you want to remove it and just leave it to all the individual lot owners to do whatever they will?
What do they usually do?
For a project like this, you'd usually see a landscape plan,
All right, then
for at least the common areas.
all right, I think that's reasonable to have, to have a landscape plan, and what's in that landscape plan is whatever's in there. I don't think we have the authority to dictate.
But
to,
at least that there is one.
Yeah, there is one.
I've seen like sample site landscaping plans on other projects.
Okay.
So they have to do exactly that every.
The only thing I think I might suggest upon rereading this is that it be prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit rather than a building permit. A building permit might be a little too early in the process to know exactly where your common areas are going to be and where, what landscaping may work where.
All right. Yes, all right, we can change building permit to occupancy permit. Unless anyone has,
Quick suggestion.
yeah? Go ahead.
The applicant is willing to submit a formal landscape plan for the mail kiosk area, the entrance area, which is Attorney Martin, it's common.
Yes.
These type of projects. And probably around the parking areas, even though, we asked for the waiver under the bylaw of X number of trees.
Street trees.
But, I mean, we want to beautify, make those areas look attractive. So there's going to be some.
Just for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and we're already showing street trees on the plan, on the site plans. So, but in addition to those other common areas we just mentioned would make sense.
All right.
So do you take exception to anything, because anything else in condition 77, because it'd be for the entrance of the project, which you appear to be in agreement with, along the roadway? Yes, you already do have the waiver from street trees, but I imagine there's also going to be some grass strip or something, or mulching around the trees. And then the perimeter of the property.
That I would object to, because that's
That's
a
going to
lot.
hit private lots.
That's a
But
lot
you're
to-
willing to do along the mail kiosk? And what about
Parking
around the
lots.
cul-de-sac where the other
So-
parking area is going to be?
when we say perimeter of the property, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the property lines? Because, those are along 44, and they're much higher. So there's no point. You're not providing a buffer to really,
Well,
I mean, some of the.
People living there
private-
might want a buffer from Route
They-
44.
The individual owners may want to do something there with fencing or noise suppression or, I don't know. But I think along the perimeter of property, if that's a requirement, that's pretty vague. Is that when I, as an engineer, think about the perimeter of the property, I'm thinking about all of the, 25 acres of property lines.
What about along the cul-de-sac, the additional parking spaces that come out there, and
Yeah.
any kind of shielding, screening, say, of headlight glare for those duplexes?
Yeah, I think we're agreeable to that, right?
So it's just clarifying, not so much the whole perimeter.
All right, so we can clarify that condition.
Okay.
In the actual final document that we sign. All right, so,
Somebody's asking a question, but I don't know if that's allowed.
those are so close. Yeah, so could you identify yourself before you speak?
Yeah, my name is Rebecca Lipton, I'm a Plympton
Okay.
resident. I'd like to do a point of order and ask that this be put on hold until the MIPA issues are rectified.
Denied?
Yeah, we don't have a choice.
We don't, yes. it's
We
not-
don't have a choice, unfortunately. Legally, we can't.
However, we do have conditions in the new draft that do address the MIPA issue that has arisen. That's 26B, and that will be in the final decision. So the extent that two things deal with, that conflict with each other, then that may need to be revisited by the board in the future, but for now, all we have is a MIPA decision. But that is not going to, that there's no statutory authority to stay these proceedings on the basis of any future MIPA action that's taken. Okay, so, but I didn't really want to be quick to deny it, but I had to make sure that the record is clear that the point of order is denied. All right, so with that all out of the way, is there any further comment from the board on this decision before we proceed to a final vote? All right, there's none, so. Now, the time being 5:17 in the afternoon of July 6th in the year of our Lord, 2026, I move that we approve this decision and the accompanying list of waivers as been reviewed, as presented to us by town council and is reviewed and commented, modified by us this afternoon. Do I have a second on this motion?
He's looking at me. I'm looking at
Don't
him.
all volunteer at once, people.
I'll second.
Determines the award of a
The
special
form-
permit.
Yes.
Yes,
This,
No, it's
so.
a comprehensive
clear.
permit.
comprehensive
So
permit.
this-
Comprehensive
This is going to be
permit, special
this is going to be the
permit,
last
permit
motion
to
of,
build.
this is going to be the decision of substance, what we've been working on for the past
Yeah.
13,
Okay.
14 months. This is over 13
Over a
months
year.
now.
Yeah.
So Suzanne is
I
second.
second.
All right, I proposed the motion, I was seconded. Now, is there any discussion before we take a vote?
No.
All right. All right, so we'll do a roll call vote to make this absolutely clear. All right, Ms. Suzanne, Mr. Jafarian, how do you vote? Aye or nay?
Aye.
Mr. Alberti, how do you vote? Aye or nay?
Nay.
And I myself vote aye. So, 2-1, the motion carries, decision is approved.
Thank you.
It's-
Hold on.
Thank you.
All right, but there being no further business before the board at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you everyone very much.